Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Good morning.
We are learning Mishnah Bava Kamma, Parak Aleph, Chapter 1, Mishnah Daled, Mishnah 4. Okay, now we need a little introduction here. The introduction is that, number one, besides for the four categories of damagers listed in the first Mishnah, we also have another one which we mentioned before called Keren, literally translated as horn, but includes damages an animal does intentionally. For example, it gores another animal with its horns. That's the Torah's example. That's why he calls it Keren, horn, because the example of the Torah is it gored it. But included in that category is also any other activity in which an animal goes and damages another one intentionally. Now, that kind of behavior is considered unusual. That's what it's considered. It's not considered normal. And therefore, anytime an animal does something unusual, it falls under the category of Keren. Now, when you are under the category of Keren, there is a difference between what we call a tam and a muad. A tam is an animal that is not expected to do damage in a particular way. Since such behavior is unexpected for this animal, its owner does not have to guard it from damaging in such a manner. Therefore, if the animal happens to damage in this way, the owner does not have to pay the full amount of the victim's loss. He pays only half. So what that means is that when an animal, a tam means it's simple, right? There's nothing, we see it as a regular animal. Now, a regular animal doesn't go damaging. Regular animals don't go goring or biting or whatever else could fall under this category of damaging. And therefore, essentially, you can't hold the owner responsible to say, why didn't you guard your animal from doing that? It's not expected. And therefore, in essence, he shouldn't have to pay anything. Nonetheless, the Torah said he does have to pay something. He doesn't pay the full damages, he pays half the damages. And actually, this kind of payment falls under the category of a knas, which is where the payment is not the same as the damage. Damage is the full, and you're only paying half. So there, and in some way, and there's also an argument to say you shouldn't have to pay anything. So therefore, that payment that's called chatzi nezek, half the damages, is called a knas. It's called a penalty. Now, at the same time, after an animal goes ahead and does this, the animal goes and unusually damages. So the Beis Din, the rabbinical court, goes over to the owner and warns him to watch it. And after 3 times of warning him to watch it, now they warn him after the first time. Animal gores again. He still pays only half. They warn him a second time, and the animal gores a third time, only pays a half. After being warned 3 times, then already we say that this animal is muad. Muad means warned, which means at this point we say the animal has taken on this habit. It is not unusual for this animal to do it anymore. It is considered usual. And therefore, the owner has full responsibility now. If now the animal goes and damages as a keren, as a horn, which includes, as we said before, it's goring, and includes biting, kicking, pushing, again, all with the intention of damaging. In those situations, if it's already did it, he was warned 3 times. At the 4th time, the halacha is that the owner will be obligated nezek shalem, the full payment. That's the difference between a tam and a muad. Now, when you're dealing with, those are the differences when you're talking about goring. However, there are damages that an animal is expected to do. Every animal is a muad, meaning it's expected to damage and you're fully responsible with respect to damaging in the course of its normal activities, such as eating or walking. Right? That's expected for an animal to do. It walks, it eats, and as it does that, it's going to damage. You're fully responsible for it right away. Okay? But for the unexpected thing, like the damaging, like the goring, that you need it to do 3 times, and after the 4th time, we consider it part of its regular behavior, and you are fully responsible to pay full damages. Okay, that's the introduction. So now we read the Mishnah. Chamisha tamin v'chamisha mu'adin. There are 5 situations in which an animal is a tam, meaning it's not expected to damage, and therefore the responsibility of the owner will be chatzi nezek, half the damages. And there are 5 situations to which it is muad, in which we consider it warned, or it's considered usual for to do. Habehema eina muedes. An animal is not muad. Rather, we consider it a tam. We consider it, so we don't consider it fully responsible. Loy ligach. It is not considered muad. It is not considered normal for it. Loy ligach. It's not muad, not to gore. V'loy ligof, and not to push with its body. V'loy lishoich, and not to bite something with intention to damage it. If it bites it to eat, vegetables, a different story. But we're not talking about that. It's biting an animal, biting a person. V'loy lirbites. They're to squat on something with intent to break it. V'loy livite, and not to kick something with intent to break it. These are all considered unusual activities, and therefore the owner will only pay half the damages. Okay? Now, I just want to read you what they say here from the bottom in the notes. These activities are considered unusual, the ones we just listed, and thus fall under the category of Keren, only if they are done with the intent to cause damage. But if, for example, an animal bites food because it wants to eat, which is normal, the damage belongs to the category of shane, of tooth, of eating. If an animal happens to squat on something as it bends its legs, it's just kind of sitting down. Or if it kicks something accidentally while it walks, the damage doesn't fall under Karen, under the goring category, under the usual category. It falls under the category of regal, of foot, of trampling, and that's normal. And regarding all these actions that are defined as shena regal, every animal is muad, since they are common expected behaviors. So when we use the word muad, the animal is muad, it means the animal is considered, it's usual for the animal to do this, and the owner is obligated to pay full damages. If we use the term tam, it means that it's not usual for it to do what it did, and the owner will pay half the damages. So the first list in the Mishnah was what the animal, it's not usual for it to do. And that's not to gore, to push, to bite, to squat, or to kick, all for the purposes of damaging. Next, Hashein mu'edes lachal es haro'ila. A tooth, meaning an animal's eating, is mu'ed. He's considered already responsible. It's considered normal to eat what's ro'ila, for it, what's fit to eat. Meaning, if an animal eats food, that's normal, and if the owner is obligated full damages. Let's say it eats a garment. It eats a garment. That's what it did. That is unusual. And therefore, it will fall under the category of Keren, of the horn. And therefore, it's only going to pay half the nezek, half the damages. Okay? Next, Haregel mu'edes l'shaber b'derech hilucha. The foot is walking. An animal is mu'ed to do that in the course of its walking, right? As it walks, that's what it does. And therefore, it's mu'ed l'shaber b'derech hilucha. It is considered mu'ed. It's considered usual for it to break as it walks. Okay? Those are the first two of the, right? The Mishnah started off with a list. There are 5 tamin, 5 mu'adim. So far we have 2 out of the 5 of what are mu'ad. The shara mu'ad. Shara mu'ad means an animal that has been warned. That means an animal that now, like for instance, goring, it did it 3 times, and the owner was warned after each time. Now it becomes the shar hamu'ad. It becomes the shar that is mu'ad. That means it's developed this as a regular habit. That's the third example. Next, Vishar hamazik b'rshus hanizik. An ox that does damage in the area owned by the damaged party is treated as though it were a mu'ad even the first time it acts that way. That means an animal goes into your domain and it gores your animal there, and it's the first time it ever did it. So it wasn't usual. But the halacha is, since it was done in the domain of the person that was damaged, it's treated as if it was normal, and you have to pay nezek shalom, you have to pay the full amount. So that's how I explained that here. The Mishnah taught above that an animal is a tam respect to Keren damage. However, if an animal entered the victim's property and did Keren damage there, it has the law of a mu'ad, in that the owner must pay full compensation, which we're going to see is an opinion of This is the opinion of this Mishnah. There is going to be another Mishnah where there's an opinion that argues on that. Okay? And that's the fourth example of a muad. And the fifth example is of Adam, a person. A person who damages is always considered muad. A person who damages anything, okay, for instance, this is the category of Adam HaMazik, a person who damages, which is damage that a person does with its own body or force. For example, he strikes something with his hand or foot, or he shoots something with an arrow, right? An arrow is called kayach, his force, but that's considered his direct damage. And in that situation, a person is muad. He's always muad. Whatever damage you do, you are considered fully responsible for. You're responsible for any actions that come about from you, and therefore you have to go ahead and pay the full damages. Now, as we bring down here from the notes, we still have two other damages we mentioned before, fire and a pit. And the halacha is, those are also muad, right? They're expected to do damage, and you have full responsibility if they do. So why weren't they mentioned in the Mishnah? Because the Mishnah decided only to talk about living things. But those two things which aren't living, it didn't list it for whatever reason. Didn't list it, but they're also muad. They're also considered expected to damage, and you're fully responsible. Now, the next Mishnah goes like this. It's basically going to give us a list of animals that are considered naturally aggressive, and even after the first time of the damage that they do to damage something, to damage another animal or person, you are going to be fully responsible. Now, what's interesting is that, let's see the example. Hazaev, a wolf, va'ari, a lion, v'hadav, a bear, v'nummer, a leopard, v'abardalis, they translate bardalis as a hyena, v'anachash, and a snake. Harei elu muadin. They are all considered muad. If you own a bear, right, you're responsible for that bear. You can't say, my bear, my cuddly bear, it's not going to damage anybody. Not going to damage anyone. Right. Not going to damage anyone. No, we don't say that. When it comes to bears, or if you happen to own a hyena for some reason, okay, at the end of the day, we say those are aggressive animals. They damage naturally. They're natural damagers. They're naturally aggressive, and you're going to be fully obligated for them. Now, you can understand, they bring down here, we had 5 examples of muadin, right? And now we have a bunch of other examples. But the Mishnah mentioned them because not likely that people are only going to own these animals anyway. Or not like, right? That's what they bring down here. These 6 animals were not added to the 5 cases of muadin listed above, which would have made a total of 11, because these animals are not found where people live, and so are unlikely to be owned by a person or to damage property that belongs to a person. So therefore, they weren't mentioned in that list. But the Mishnah wants to tell you that that's the halacha here. Now, Rebbe Lezer argues, Bisman Shebnei Tarbus, if they are domesticated, they were raised in someone's home, then he says, Ein muadin. They are not considered muadin. If you find this, you raise a wolf in your house, in your whatever, in your property, you domesticated it, then it's like a little puppy dog. It doesn't talk about dogs here, but it's like your little, it's like your little calf. It's domesticated, and therefore its nature is not to be aggressive, and they would not be muad. If they were to damage, it would be a tam. You'd pay half the damage. Okay. So Rebbe Lezer is arguing on the first. He's arguing on the opinion mentioned before. The opinion mentioned before did not differentiate whether it's domesticated or not. He differentiates if it is domesticated. However, your pet snake, right, one that would damage, right, your pet rattlesnake or your pet boa constrictor, even if they were domesticated, no, it doesn't work. That you can't domesticate them. And therefore, they are always considered muad. They are always expected to damage, and you're fully responsible. If you like to know the halacha, the Bartanura says the halacha is not like Rebbe Lezer, and all these animals damaged, even if domesticated, are muadim. And then the Mishnah concludes what we've been saying until now, but with another detail. Ma bein tam lemuad. So what's the difference if it's considered a tam or a muad? What's the difference if it's considered unusual or usual? The answer is, the tam pays half the damage from its body, Umuad mishalem nezek shalom and aliyah, while the muad pays the full damage from the best. That means like this. Let me tell you how to explain it. The difference are only that when a tam damages, its owner pays half damages. Okay? The animal was worth 100, and now you only have to pay 50. And that payment of 50 is taken from its body. That is, the owner need give only a damaging animal as payment. That's another thing. If you're paying chatzi nezek for a tam, you are not taking cash out of your pocket. Rather, you are taking one second. Right. You give the damaging animal as payment. Your animal that did the damaging, that's where the payment comes from. If the animal's value is less than half the damage, he does not pay the difference. That's derived from where that's the halacha. And if it dies or becomes lost, he does not pay anything. So that's what it means. Chatzi nezek is migufa, is from the body of the animal. You pay with the animal. Now, if the animal is worth more than chatzi nezek, right, then I believe you're gonna sell the animal and then give the money from that. But the point is that payment is collected by a tam from the body of the animal that did the damage. And if it comes out that animal that did the damage is less than the value of chatzi nezek and half the damage, that's all you're gonna get. And if let's say the animal dies, it basically loses all its value, or it gets lost. You have nothing there. That's it. Yeah, that's your loss. That's the person got damage lost. That's the din by a tam. Well, if it's a muad, meaning it's muad to damage, it's expected to damage, then the owner pays full damages, no matter how much the damaging animal is worth. Doesn't matter how much the damaging animal is. You have to pay the full amount. And if he pays with land, as we mentioned before, he must pay from the best land that he has. So these are the differences between the tam and the muad. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.